Helldivers 2 was just released over a month ago, and it's become an instant hit. The way it became popular so quickly isn't exactly normal. For those that remember, the original Helldivers wasn't very popular at all, so here's the story of how Helldivers 2 pretty much came out of nowhere to become one of the most popular games of 2024. Helldivers 2 is a co-op third-person shooter in which you're tasked with pushing back the Terminid swarm and protecting democracy across the galaxy. You can customize your character's looks and abilities, and there's tons of different weapons you can use to cause destruction on the battlefield. Before launch, there was very little hype apart from the small number of fans of the original game. The first game sold around 2 million copies since it came out in 2015. Helldivers 2 in comparison is believed to have already sold over 8 million copies. Its weekly sales in the UK are beating Spider-Man 2 and reached a peak of 458,000 players, and that number doesn't even include PlayStation players. So why has it been such a success? The game is pretty simple. There's no great story, instead small bits of information are presented as optional extras when you're on any given planet. There's no weapon customization or vehicles to ride around in. There's no damage numbers on show, and there's no perks or special abilities. Instead, they've stripped the game right back to the basics. You just land on a planet and shoot a load of bugs or robots with other players. It does something a lot of games don't really do nowadays and concentrates on the fun. The fact it did all this while being built on a discontinued game engine makes its success even more impressive. Autodesk Stingray was discontinued in 2018, 6 years before the game even came out. Arrowhead CEO Johan Pilstad confirmed they'd already started on the game before it was discontinued and went on to say, "Our crazy engineers had to do everything with no support to build the game to parity with other engines." One thing that was kept quiet throughout the run-up to the game's release was the fact that there were people working at Arrowhead whose job was essentially a games master. The game's deputy director, Sagar Baroshi, compared it to a games master in Dungeons & Dragons, saying, "We have a suite of tools and a suite of real-life human beings, not just AI bots, that are doing this, that are observing the gameplay as it's happening and responding in real time." He gave the example of when the game was only being previewed by the press right around launch time, saying, "One of our team members was observing your playstyle and debated what to do and was like, I'm gonna drop them this extra strategy," says Baroshi. "You were playing with us at the same time as you were playing with each other, all against the bad guys." But it's not always in your favor, as sometimes the games master might push you and make it more difficult for your team. "We can drop in more or less things like buffs, but sometimes debuffs will happen too," Baroshi said. A good challenge can sometimes be really valuable. He went on to give the example of holding and defending an extraction point, which you do at the end of a mission, and that a games master might make you defend it for twice as long just to mess with you because, especially at those higher difficulties, those marginal things can make all the difference. This is where the live service model shines and makes you feel like you're part of something. Other live service models can sometimes feel like it's just a cash grab and an attempt to keep you playing constantly. Helldivers 2 live service model has probably been the key reason behind the game's incredible player retention. At a peak, it had 458,000 players, but now, even months later, there's still around 250,000 players logging in every day. And when big live service events happen in the game, they've seen huge spikes in players. The Automation Invasion recently saw more than 345,000 players swarm back to the game. This doesn't include PlayStation players, only the data that's publicly available from Steam. The game costs around $40, has 2 battle passes already, a cosmetic shop that rotates, and actual weapons and armor you can only get through battle passes. You might expect people to be furious about this, but they're not. And the reason for this is that there's a free battle pass filled with key items to unlock which you earn through playing and not paying. Rather than being able to spend money to skip playing and unlock the best stuff right away, that's not an option in Helldivers. The free battle pass even contains 700 super credits, enough to shave about $7 off the paid one. And you can find super credits in missions, so in theory you could buy the paid battle pass without spending a dime. Putting all these factors together, it's easy to see why Helldivers 2 has got the gaming community excited again with great gameplay and a monetization model that doesn't feel predatory. It makes thinking about the future of the game only more exciting, as there's sure to be new weapons, planets, and even new races of enemies as the game grows and matures. Currently there's major orders where the entire player base works together to liberate specific planets. However, you can imagine that as the game progresses, these orders will only get more complicated or even introduce new types of missions. Let me know if you've played Helldivers, and make sure to watch this video where I go through some of the best games to play over and over again.